Hi, I'm Nick Morales, the Real Estate Deal Junkie.
Let's get down to business. So let's get down to business.
Thanks so much for joining me back on my channel. Did you know that you can make upwards to $100,000 without even seeing a property? Well, you can, and I've actually done it. And actually the way to do it is wholesaling. So wholesaling is awesome because it allows you to do it virtually. You don't even need to see the property, never even need to walk it. All you have to do is get in contact with a seller that says that they're interested in selling, and then go through the 4 pillars of motivation that we've talked about in some of my previous videos, which I'll link below as well. But essentially, I'm just gonna break it down very simple. I bought this property from this owner. His parents were deceased. They were no longer at the property, so he was just in care of it, but he lived in Reno. This property was out in Dayton, Nevada. He didn't like going out there. He had a caretaker that was taking care of it. So I had one of our inspectors go out there, take a look at the property, give me some photos, which you'll see right up here. They're terrible. The property was in really, really bad shape, as you can see. It was not very nice, right? I shared these photos with the owner. I was like, hey, like this is what's been going on, right? He's very distraught. He's upset. You know, he just wanted to get rid of the property at this point. You know, it's brought up a lot of bad memories. So I bought this property for $250,000. And when I bought it, you know, I got it under contract. I did the 12-day inspection right. I gave myself 30 days to close on this. And then what I started to do is shop for buyers. So everyone typically always asks, how do you get buyers? Like, how do you go out and get people to find these properties that you have to sell to them? Well, it's really easy. Once you have a deal, you just start looking out in the network that you're already in and saying, hey, do you know anyone else that's in this area that would be interested in buying a property like this? You know, at the time, I was going to some groups that were, you know, wholesaling groups in my area, and there was a lot of buyers that would go to those to, you know, to obviously meet wholesalers like myself to buy properties. So I reached out to the one of buyers that I knew. And once again, that's a very simple way to do it. You can do a lot harder ways to get property information. You can look at who's buying in that area, you know, pull all the information, see how many cash buys are going on, and you can market to that list as well. It's very easy to do that via PropStream or another platform. You can even pull it from a title company. Just ask them to give you all the cash sales that were then resold. What you want to ask once again is for all the cash sales that were bought, and within that range of 120 days, they were sold again, which means that they were flipped. And those people are going to be prime candidates for buying properties in cash from you when you're wholesaling. So I went to the buyer that I knew. I said, hey, you want to go take a look at this property? He went out there, did his inspection, came back to me and said, hey, you know, at first he was like, you know, I can give you $350 for it, $355. So I would have made about $5,000 on that property. And I was like, over the moon. I was like, this is insane. Never even seen this property. He went and did his inspection. His contractor came back and said, you know, there's some things that I'm a little bit worried about. I got to come down. So he came down to $325, which I'm like, oh my God, no, I can't take that, right? But I'm still sitting in this thing at $75,000 net, right? Which is awesome. So I ended up taking that deal because I shopped around a couple other buyers and he was still the highest one. So at that point, I just actually assigned him the contract, sent it over to him. We put it into escrow and then he closed. I went and got my check and that was about it. Probably the easiest deal I've ever done. Made about $75,000 in about a month's worth of work. So the reason I decided just to wholesale this property instead of to flip it is at the time when I was doing it, I didn't have the cash to, you know, get out and go get a hard money loan from a Civic or another financial institution like Lending Home. And I really didn't know what I was doing in flipping. So I just decided like, I'm just gonna take the money. It's quick cash. I didn't have to do any work. In hindsight, it's 2020. You know, that same buyer that I sold the property to, sold that property for $450,000. I probably could have put 60 grand into it, or 70 grand into it, right, and sold it, and I probably would have made $120,000 and it would have been a slam dunk. So you know, every time you're looking at a deal, you have to just evaluate it, what's currently going on right now in your business and what makes the most sense for you. And at that time, you know, I just started out in wholesaling and I didn't feel comfortable right then to take on a bigger project. But now I definitely would have done it in a heartbeat and I would have smacked that one out of the park. But once again, you know, I learned this lesson the hard way when COVID started. I remember it was March 2020. I had probably about $70,000 worth of deals in escrow for assignments and COVID hit. And I could have closed probably about 3 or 4 of them before COVID, but I got greedy and I was pushing the buyers to give me the higher price. So I went and shopped around. And something that I've learned in this business is when the money's there, take it, because you never know when the market's going to shift. Like with COVID, you know, we didn't know that was going to happen and shut down the state and shut down the nation. So I was lucky enough to hold on to a lot of those deals, and I was only able to sell a couple of them later down the line, but I was not able to sell them for the amount of money that I had them in contract at that time. So, you know, lesson learned, take that money when it's there. But now what I'd love to do is actually go ahead and walk you through what an assignment agreement is, so you guys can have a better understanding of what that looks like and how you actually can exchange money by exchanging the contract, because that's all you're really doing is you're giving that contract to the actual new buyer. You're just the middleman. You source the deal, and then you're actually assigning your rights to that deal to the actual new buyer, who's actually going to be the one going to escrow, closing, bringing the money to the table. And during that transaction, as long as your title company and escrow company that you're using is investor friendly, they will not disclose how much money you're making to the actual seller. So the seller will never know that you sold it to somebody else. Now, you can always bring it up to them if you want to. I wouldn't. It's just not something that I like doing. It's none of their business. But this is what an assignment agreement looks like. Okay, so at the top of this agreement here, you're going to see your company name is where you're going to want to put at the first part there, which you're going to be the assignor. The assignee is going to be the person that's actually getting your rights. So they're going to be put in the next box there. Subject property, you're going to want to put the property there in full, all the way down to the zip code. And then right after that, you're going to see whereas, and that's going to be your company name again, because you're the actual buyer, has entered an agreement with the person that you're actually buying this property from. So the original seller, you're going to want to put their name in there because they are the original seller. And then line 1 here, this is where it talks about who you're assigning it to and then the compensation. So the first line here is going to be where you're going to want to say the purchase to their LLC or whatever that they're putting it in, as you can see in parentheses here, assignee, in exchange for compensation in the money of an amount of, let's just say, $100. So you're going to want to put 100 there, and then you're going to want to put $100 again, and you can take earnest money here. Now, this is really important because when somebody comes into contract with you, right, and you're assigning the assignment to them, you can actually take earnest money deposits for that assignment. And I would. When you go into an assignment, and if I would have done that when I spoke earlier with all these assignments that I had, I did not have people in actual earnest money deposits. I just assigned them with zero value in earnest money because I thought, well, I know these people, it's no big deal. But you should put something down. What I would always say is put 20%, if not more. I would say at least 20% of your how much you're going to make on that assignment. So let's just say you're making $1,000. I would put at least $200 down as earnest money that the end buyer has to put down in escrow, which is saying that they are putting that money down for you, saying that if that deal does fall out because they don't perform, then you're going to get their $200. And once again, if it does happen where they have to get backed out, like the situation I talked about earlier, you have to make a judgment call with your relationship with that person because you don't want to lose somebody over $200, right? But if it's significant amount, then you have to really make that decision at that point. At the bottom here, you're going to see on the left side is going to be for the assignee, person that's actually taking over the contract, and on the right side is going to be the assignor. So that's how that works. Pretty simple, and that's how you actually send over an assignment agreement. Once again, I would send it via DocuSign, which is the easiest way to do so. Thanks so much for joining me on this video here about us going over wholesaling. If you have any questions though, make sure to put those in the comment area, and I will go ahead and address those at another time and make another video about it. But just remember, wholesaling is the fastest way to making wealth in this business without having to do the minimum amount of work. All you're doing is getting the seller to agree to sell the property, and then you're just assigning it to another buyer. I know that sounds crazy, but it's super easy to do. I've done a ton of these because there's such great cash flow into our business that it's almost stupid for us not to continue to do more of these. If I don't want to flip it, there's obviously somebody out there that may want to flip it. And once you get a bigger buyer pool that you can reach out to, which is really easy to do, as I mentioned earlier, you just want to go on some of these websites or talk to your title company to give you some of those cash transactions that are going on in your area and go from there. And if you don't have many cash transactions in your area, maybe you should just look into another area. And that's another beautiful thing about wholesaling is you can do it completely virtual. All the acquisition managers that work for us in our office, they don't go to appointments anymore. They don't go out to the property. They don't even meet the seller unless the seller like demands to meet somebody, because there's no point to. At the end of the day now, with COVID and everything that was going on, and people are more comfortable to just talk over the phone and get business done, then you can just do these deals over the phone. But imagine making $75,000 in a course of 2 months, because that's what I did. It's that easy to do. Anyone can do it. It's just about getting on the phone and really diving into people's motivation. So thank you guys so much for joining me on this video. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.
Let's get down to business. So let's get down to business.